the Stargate we have come into the wonderful studio of Destination Newry here in the heart of Newry, and I'm joined by Feargal McCormack. How are you?
Good to see you, Ron.
Always good to see you. I think first things first, the entourage, the Sharabang went from Newry, not least the McCormack clan went to Omagh on Sunday last. So sad. We almost did it.
Well, it's football, Ron. We had a good day out. We met plenty of people. In the first half, Down didn't perform to what they're capable of. And the second half, they showed a level of commitment and passion, which was exceptionally encouraging. And the good thing is they've still got another chance, and I think the experience of last week will stand them in good stead. I think, Down are a formidable opposition at any time in Park Arsenal.
Yeah, sure.
And obviously, you like to win the first time you can, and we had our chances to win and left them behind us. But I would compliment the players on the sense that, to be honest with you, the first half, they won't need any of us to say it was probably as poor a down performance as been in years and years.
But we often talk about the Tyrone manager, Mickey Hart, being the great motivational man. No one was any more motivational than James at half time.
Well, I think his management team deserve credit. They also acknowledged, I suppose, that they couldn't continue as they were, and they had to take a big risk, and if it went pear-shaped, well, so be it. But that you're 7 points down at half time, and the truth really is, Down were flattered by the half-time scoreline. Tyrone were a considerably better team. Tyrone were perhaps flattered by the full-time scoreline, by the way.
Yes, I think so.
But the bottom line is that in terms of the balance of play, Tyrone were playing Down nearly virtually in every position. So Down had to do something, and I think it's to the credit of both the management and the players that they recognised the original plan wasn't working, and to go for maybe plan E rather than plan B, C or D.
Yeah, I just see in James at the moment, in the things he's writing and saying and being quoted on, I see a spring in his step.
Well, I think what he's obviously trying to do is, as you know yourself, momentum is very important, and body language is very important. And what he's trying to do, no doubt, is to ensure that his players don't feel in any way deflated from not winning the first match. And what he's trying to say is, this is a great opportunity. The extra game gives us good game time. The extra game gives an opportunity to learn from the past, but more importantly, to prepare a platform for the future. And hopefully, in that context, acknowledging Tyrone will be a very difficult team. But because of the back door in the championship, the second half against Tyrone and another good game will give Down confidence, or indeed Tyrone, no matter who wins the game, because it doesn't end next Saturday night.
Yeah. It could almost be a metaphor for the economy, dear boy.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you're linking sport with economy, Ron.
You do it par excellence, I tell you, because you're the finest guru of the economy around, but at the same time, you don't lose sight of the inner man yourself. You look after yourself in the sense of being there and making sure that you recreate, and the importance of your family around you, all of that. And that's important for people to keep sight of, in spite of the many, many storms that they have to face, and there are many within the economy.
Well, I think you embarrassed me with some of your definitions of me there, but acknowledging those, I think it is important that life is all about family and about business, and it's about how one spends their time 24 hours a day. So you talk about the match on Sunday. I mean, that was a lovely family occasion for us.
I saw you starting up. It was beautiful.
We started off with breakfast.
Absolutely, down and grounded.
We head off to Omagh, and
it's lovely.
It's a lovely day out.
There's so many people doing that. Lots of people did it.
Look, you meet a lot of people, and no, it's very good.
Now, homelessness is in focus, and it's not getting any better. The Governor of the Bank of England talking about his fears for the bubble that is London. For 1 in 5 homeless people have died in Belfast since the beginning of the year. The Republic of Ireland being asked to provide immediately to purchase 1,500 houses to give by Peter McVerry's asking them 1,500 houses. They're discussing that today. Is it crisis?
Well, certainly in the Republic of Ireland, the homeless issue is a crisis, and I think, to be fair to the Governor of the Bank of England, he's making sure we don't fall into the traps we fell into the past. So there's two slightly different things, but they merge in the middle. I think if you look, first of all, at the Republic of Ireland, The homelessness has reached a level that no one could have anticipated. And more importantly, the nature of the homelessness is completely contrasted to what it was in the past. You now have families who would have been middle earning, families who have been paying a higher rate of tax, who now, because they had negative equity in their house mainly, are in a situation that they're being forced out of their house. And because they have no house, they're then caught in a catch-22 situation. And under the Republic's law and social services, what happens is, before you can get help, you have to report yourself as homeless. To be homeless, you have to have no house or anything else. So all of a sudden you go to your social security office in the south and you say you're homeless, and the next thing is they relocate you to an hotel perhaps for 2 weeks, you and your 4 kids in one room. You can see the socio-economic backlash that has, because you're taking quite often people out of their local environment, or they're having to go out and get a bus to go to school. The kids are still going to school, then they're coming back to this hotel room. And therefore, the issue is the availability of social housing. And I think we all in society have a number of issues to address there. Number one, social housing didn't become popular in the recent past. Everyone to own their own house in Ireland. That is not necessarily the case in many other countries. And therefore, all of a sudden, social housings, they weren't being built to the extent because people want to, they've seen wealth as owning your own house rather than paying rent. And there's something in that. So I think that's a big challenge for the Irish government.
They're talking about it today, aren't they?
Yeah, there's a cabinet meeting on today. The reason why it's a very big challenge, they're talking about bringing old Garda stations and everything.
That's right, I heard that. Yeah.
The reason why it's a big challenge is it's going to get worse initially. And the reason it's going to get worse is that, you know, the banks probably, because of political pressure for a long time, weren't calling in the assets on their deficient loans. But I think the evidence now is that there are so many people in default on their home mortgages that this is going to realise a crystallisation. Now that will bring challenges. I think, to be fair to the banks equally, I think they're willing to work with people. But what is frustrating for a banker, and remember this, is that if all of a sudden you're telling them you can't pay your mortgage and you're away enjoying yourself at a football match in England or in Brazil or all around the world.
It doesn't work, does it?
It doesn't work. And therefore, I think people have to be realistic. You can't say you can't pay your mortgage and then start living a lifestyle.
Oh, no, no.
And I think if people play a straight hand, I think 9 times out of 10 they will get an understanding financially.
And what happens, I'm just wondering about when people can no longer pay the mortgage, their house is repossessed. Why don't they just rent?
Well, if they will do that, we can afford it. But what's happening then is in a type property, say for example Dublin, and present rents are rising, where they fell dramatically 5 years ago because nobody were renting properties, but now they're rising again. Now that brings us, I think, to a subtly different situation. In the south, is being driven, if the truth is being told, by repossessions a lot of the time, right? The UK problem is slightly different because it's being driven by the southeast of England, albeit Dublin is now experiencing the same issue. And it's this, it's very simple. That literally, because the supply of appropriate houses is less than the demand is forcing up a potential housing bubble. In the past, what we did was, we actually kept giving people money to buy the house. But at present, we're on low interest rates.
Yes.
So if somebody gets a 95% mortgage, and the interest rate, and they can afford that, and the interest rate goes up 0.5% or 1% over a 2 or 3 year period, in a mortgage that's lasting 25 years, the impact of that is quite dramatic. And all of a sudden, you can have people not being able to pay their mortgages.
Carney's giving
what Carney's saying here is
he's giving a breath of relief almost.
Correct. He's not building houses, right?
Yeah.
And where you're then seeing the impact of Carney and Will Moore is, I think he's sending a signal out that people are shouting mortgage, we want mortgages, we want mortgages to be more flexible. I think Carney is putting it very bluntly, that actually he won't be able to build houses, but he is going to ensure that the capital adequacy of financial institutions providing mortgages is not going to be allowed, as it was in the past, to provide 100% or 95% mortgages. So what you see now is, when you see it in this area, and you hear the stories all the time, they couldn't get a mortgage, they couldn't afford it.
Oh, yeah.
They got planning permission, They got planning permission because the banks won't now give finance in many instances for a site. So you have to go and get the planning permission first of all. They get planning permission, and then they're saying that banks wants them to fund 30% of the house. They just can't do it. But if we're being honest, maybe that's a lesson to us all. Maybe what it's really saying is we all have to cut the cloth a bit in our houses. And maybe we don't need 2 or 3 toilets or 2 or 3 bathrooms. Maybe we just need to forget about ensuite bedrooms. You know, and I'm being honest with you, I'm 54. But if I go back and look at my era when we were getting married and when we were buying houses...
We've made do with a lot less.
Well, I'm just giving an example. You know, my first house, I've only lived in 2 houses in my life. My first house, I bought it when I was getting married 27, £44,000, I think. I sold it 12 years later. At that stage, I was 39, remember? 39. I sold it for 87,000.
Yes, yes.
Now today, young people starting off on the job ladder, I want to buy houses at 100, 120, 130, 140,000. And the reality is this is a perception. And maybe we need to get back to some of the other countries' lifestyles, which says you shouldn't be spending 40 or 50% of your disposable income on your mortgage. And you don't maybe need all the bedrooms, and you certainly don't need all the bathrooms and all the toilets.
Yes, of course.
That some houses now have. It's probably now unusual to go into a private house that doesn't maybe have 3 toilets.
My goodness. Yeah, yeah. So it's a return to common sense. Away from housing now, because the enrichment, riches grow, and the Sunday Times Rich List the other day, Brian Conlon is doing very well. He's profited in First Derivatives.
I want to go back to the Sunday Times Rich List first of all.
Yes.
I think it's a load of bullshit.
That's an interesting one.
And I won't go into more detail, but I suffice to tell you that in any smart analysis of finance, you have to look at the asset and the debt.
Yes.
They haven't yet learned how to find out what the debt and the asset is.
They've no way of doing that.
Well, then they maybe shouldn't produce them. I personally believe that there are many people not on the list who are smiling.
Okay.
But anyway, because
it's hurtful to be on the list.
They have the money in their bank account as opposed to people who, to be fair, probably don't want to be in the list. But having said that, you mentioned First Derivatives.
It's a joy to see their progress.
It's a phenomenal joy, and you know, to be fair to the founder Brian Conlon, to his team.
An Abbey man.
Yeah, an Abbey man and
Newry man. Yourself.
Yes, and a Queen's man. We both were not miles away from the same time, and a chartered accountant as well. So, give him all those things, but more importantly, he's an entrepreneur of exceptional ability, and he's a man of exceptional values and integrity. Yeah. And the announcement of his company's results this morning, showing I think maybe 9 million, is a phenomenal achievement. But more importantly, Ron, they anticipate growing their 2 key sectors of consultancy and software development over the next 12 to 18 months. They're currently recruiting around 100 graduates a year in Northern Ireland.
My goodness.
And that's some role of potential employment. And I heard Graham Ferguson, the financial director of the company, on the radio this morning, and I have to say he was exceptionally impressive. And you know, you only have to walk into Newry here and go to near the top of Sugar Island any morning. Do you see them all? Do you see the young, aspiring professional
Newry's Wall
people?
Street.
Newry's Wall Street. And I can tell you, at times we don't maybe acknowledge this, but this is a company we should be very, very proud of.
Absolutely.
This is a company that's giving our young people an opportunity to experience life around the world.
Yeah,
life around the world, and then to come back here.
And going out around the world and solving the problems of the world.
But what does it prove, Rowan? It proves 1 or 2 common things we've been saying for a long time. With an island of 5 million people, and in the current global market, you can service anywhere in the world from here.
Yes.
But your customer cannot be on this island alone.
No, no. And we do it from a...
And if you take First Derivatives, I would suspect their turnover in this island will be less than 2-3%, 5%.
And we do it from a canal warehouse, reaching out across the technological world, which is beautiful.
Well, it comes back to our housing thing. You don't necessarily need physical.
Yeah.
You need value, you need knowledge, you need brain power.
Intellectual property.
And if you look at the intellectual property that's the success of many businesses today, it isn't the largest office anymore. Indeed, actually, the smart businesses are reducing their offices in centralized locations and are using far more home workers, or using far more people with their iPad is the way in. But knowledge, but a flexibility and a willingness to adapt, a willingness to acknowledge that yesterday's methods won't necessarily achieve tomorrow's solutions. But what they will do is they will provide a foundation upon which we can learn from.
Yeah.
And I think what we're really saying here is that First Row is a role model for what can be achieved. But it also highlights the massive challenges. Because you think of that, the strategists within that business, they're having to look at global trends. They're having to develop software which is acknowledging and enhancing managers and financial institutions throughout the world to adopt and deal with an evolving financial crisis that has evolved over the last 5 years. That's some challenge.
It is a challenge. And not knowing what the future holds, where it's going to take them next. As always, you've been concise, to the point, focused, enthusiastic, trying to speak right, Rowan. Enthusiastic, absolutely wonderful. God bless you, you're a good man. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Rowan.
We'll play you some music now, Feargal McCormack.
Jumping and jumping, and a little bit